Prevention is the key to a healthy life. That's why Gunderson Health encourages you to learn about vaccines and how they can help you and your loved ones stay healthy. Vaccines protect against preventable diseases and viruses by boosting your body's defenses. Visit GundersonHealthFacts.com to learn more. Artspire is back on June 10th at the Pump House Regional Arts Center. Enjoy live music from Nicholas David, Charlie Boy, and High and Rising, plus a fine art fair, interactive art projects, and visual and performing arts. The event is free to all. Learn more at artspire.thepumphouse.org. We connect with Robert Caldwell, a self-described art therapist. We talk about his creative altar work and get into the themes of this unique medium of scrap wood, thrift store finds, assorted junk, and various idols. The work explores racism, sexism, and materialism, among other isms, but always follows through with kindness at the center. You can find more conversations, food reviews, weekend picks, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is Lacrosse Local.
All right. So, I've known about your work for a while. You actually kind of displayed down at Fanning Counseling here a couple of years pre-COVID, put up about 150 of your altars and had people walk through and just kind of experience them. But kind of going back, are you from that area originally? Where were you born? And kind of like, where did their interest in art kind of start?
Yeah, I was born in South Carolina and lived there and in Georgia for the first 35 years of my life, and moved to Wisconsin in 1989 and moved to Viroqua in 91. Pretty much been here ever since. And where did the art start? I don't know, really. I know even from a young age, I was interested in making things and feeling that creative energy, I guess you'd say. Never really took a real interest in art, but I just like to make things.
So what led to the altars? And for people who haven't seen your work, I mean, they're the assortment of wood, thrift store stuff, different materials, kind of a hodgepodge, not necessarily hodgepodge, but, kind of creating these pieces that kind of stick off from the wall and just kind of like hold a lot of space. Where did that idea start from?
Brent, I can just tell you how it happened. Is I was mainly painting images and things, and one night or afternoon, I remember being in there and I thought, oh, I should make these altars. I don't know where the thought came from or why, but somehow it just fit. And I've been doing it ever since. It's been very satisfying to make altars, and I don't really know why.
You had a little open house actually this past weekend, and you kind of referenced in the invite, it's almost like a therapy for you. We talked in the kitchen. You said, you kind of work things out with these pieces. What made you come to that realization that you're kind of done? And I guess, even going back, I mean, you got about 300 of these things, and it's been like a 12-year process, right?
There's actually the count, in case you're interested, 596.
Wow.
Yeah, years ago, I can't tell you why again, really. I don't understand the whole process, but it just felt good. I think most of my life I had no real clear, coherent paradigm of reality, you might say, or what was going on in the world and how I fit into it. And somehow allowing these things to come out as they has been therapeutic for me. And somehow they relieve the anxiety generated from not knowing or not having a clear understanding of what's going on in life and what's behind the scene. Somehow that can come through a little bit for me in making these altars. And I call myself a self-trained art therapist. I'm really not an art therapist, but it has been therapeutic to make these things. It just allow the creative process to unfold through me.
I think I've heard you say this in writing, but also just when we've been chatting, you talk about sort of a pilgrimage, but also you call them needy little children.
Yeah.
Which are teaching you lessons.
Yeah. That's true. I call them my needy little children, in that each of them holds or encapsulates some sort of need in me. again, mainly to understand and to have a clearer understanding of reality and life and world and God and religion and other people and who am I and how do I fit into the whole scene. Each one of those has their own little part of that, and in that way, they sort of represent my neediness just as a human being.
So, even going back to like your painting, I mean, when I look at these and I think it's like a devotional painting, like a retablo in some sense, kind of folk art in some sense as well, spirituality into it as well.
Yeah, yeah, they do. One thing I think about, and a lot of this I've realized after the fact. After the fact of making them years later, I'll go, oh, that's what was going on when I was making that. But they all seem to, I don't know, just have their part and their message, and they've been helpful. And I've had a lot of questions about religion and spirituality and all the different conflicting points of view on that. And what type of world is it that we live in that all of these things can coexist? It's just been interesting to me in sort of an unconscious drive. And, I think one thing I've also said to you in the past was maybe that I don't consider myself an artist, that art in a way seems to come from the mind, that the mind has a goal to produce something that looks a certain way or does a certain thing. And I've really not had that. There's very little art aesthetic or traditional art aesthetic in what I make. That's not why I do them. This is more process and allowing these things to unfold and allowing just that creative energy to come through. And the source of that creative energy, in my opinion, is something far deeper and beyond the mind and what the mind can create. And that, to me, I think has been the therapeutic part, that I've allowed something larger than myself to come through without overriding it with my discerning mind and what I think it should look like. And yeah.
You kind of address, everything from racism to sexism, materialism, as you talked about, religion. You reference kindness a lot, it seems like. Why is that a theme for your work, you think?
Well, I can only speculate, but to me, when it comes down to the bottom line or the common thread to people and religious activities and understandings, it seems like the common thread or the bottom line is let's just be kind. When we don't know, instead of getting fixed, or let me just be kind, let me put it that way, instead of me getting fixed in my opinion or my point of view and then hanging on to that for dear life, just relax and let go and just be kind and compassionate to other people. That seems to be very important in life when we don't know. And there's so much I don't know. But if I can just allow that to be, and in the process, be kind to myself and be kind to other people, it just seems to have a better outcome than otherwise.
Do you remember the first one you created out of that 500 plus? Or is that something you
No,
gave
I
away?
don't remember exactly which one it was that I first made an altar of. I remember a set. There's quite a few of there that came in the first set of that. I remember one of the first things I made. I was a teenager and someone wanted something, and I made something out of a found piece of wood and a piece of cloth and a frame and whatnot. And they were very happy with it. They paid me for it, and that felt good. They've all sort of evolved out of a general need or desire to understand. But I don't remember the first one really. I've got one in the basement that, as part of it, a painting that I know I did in 1975. And so that's pretty old, pretty long time ago, but yeah.
This past weekend, also just listening to you kind of engage with other people that are kind of, walking through your 3 floors at your home in Viroqua. I know you talked about this, and you talked about this in the past. You don't necessarily sell these, but you also want you want to display them potentially in the future, or there was a building idea, or where's that at?
Yeah, I'd say if I had a bucket list, there's very little on my bucket list. I'm pretty satisfied and happy with my life, but one thing on my bucket list would be to have a place to show these things where people could come see them. I've wanted it for years. And I think that's what prompted this open house is I thought, well, this may never happen. I may never have a place to put all these things. And so I decided I'd open up my house, and I just opened it up to people I knew and that I thought might be interested. I didn't put out any kind of general opening that I might have done had it been a public venue of some sort. And so now they're just in my house, and I don't know what the next step is. Somebody asked me at the open house, well, what are you going to do with these things? It may have been you, I don't know. But I said, well, I think they're going to I might make them a funeral pyre. That seems like a fitting ending to them when I pass on, that my kids would just pile them up and put me on top of it. It's sort of a joke. I don't think that's going to happen, but I would like a place to put them. It does seem to be important to me somehow that people see them. And I don't quite understand that. Maybe it's vanity or just a desire to be liked or appreciated. I don't know, but you're right. I've never made them to sell. If I ever tried to make something to sell, it didn't feel good. It just didn't have any juice to it, you might say. I simply don't do that. I don't take commissions to make things because I fail at it. It's just when it's sort of an unattached approach and allowing these things to come through, whatever wants to come through. That's when I feel good about them. And I've given a number of them away to people that really liked them. That seemed important to me, that they had a connection with that. And you're right, it is sort of like my children. I'm not going to sell my children, but if somebody really, I've got so many, if somebody really likes something, I just let them have it. And anymore, if somebody wants to buy something, okay, well, which one is it? And it would be strictly by donation, whatever is worth to you is what I've done. So
going through that, you think about it as like talk about art therapy, but also, it seems like it would be tough to get rid of these just based on, or give them away, just based on, they seem like therapeutic sessions, like a very personal sort of subject for you. And if anyone goes to therapy, it's mostly talk, but I mean, to have a remembrance of every single one, and then for someone to want that experience, it's interesting to see that you'd just offer that up to someone who's really engaged in it, or just allowing people to see those private moments.
Yeah. I feel about the same way. I've often thought of them as sort of a 3D journal or a 3D diary that has just unfolded over time. And if that could be helpful to somebody else, that means a lot. There were actually 3 people at the open house I had that somehow, and I can't explain it, it just felt like they were really touched at a deep place by seeing these things beyond any particular piece. They somehow, the energy of them touched them somehow. I wouldn't dare try to explain what that was, but I would like to see them out, and if someone could benefit from seeing them. And it was interesting that there were several people that mentioned my vulnerability in showing these things, and that sort of perplexed me because I don't feel like it was being vulnerable at all, but it makes me wonder where this vulnerability is for them, that for them to do that, it would make them vulnerable. And I think I have put a lot of my inner workings on them. But to me, that doesn't feel vulnerable. That feels like authentic or truthful. And it feels good to do that. So that was a little perplexing that you mentioned vulnerability. And so, yeah.
We kind of touched on, maybe this is kind of your pilgrimage, or your experience of this is kind of coming to an end What's next for you? Do you have things on the horizon, or are you just hanging out? Or
I think that's a little misleading what I said, that I think it's come to an end. I don't think I'm going to stop being creative, but it seems like the process that I've been through the last number of years has sort of involved the release or the resolution of anxiety created from trying to come to a coherent paradigm of reality. And I feel like for the most part, I've gotten that. I sort of get what's going on now. And or I'm not going to say I get it. I'm going to say I have an explanation that suits me, that feels good and it feels authentic and clear, and it makes sense to me that I've got that now. And so I don't have all of the anxiety that has sort of generated all of these altars over the last number of years. But the creative process still lives in me. And what I'm thinking might be the next step, as you say, is that the altars might start to become more balanced somehow, or more, even hesitate to use the word, but more beautiful, and not have as much darkness and paradox and perplexity and chaos in them, but just be more coherent somehow and clearer in their message. And so we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. I don't really know now.
I forgot how we got connected a number of years ago, but I mean, you did show your work at Fan and Counseling, and you have these kind of invite only sort of things just popped up. And I think that's one of the first that you put out there. How do people engage with your work, or how do people connect with you? Is that an option?
I have a Flickr account, and I use it more as a catalog, you might say, of a way to organize them all in one place. I would like to have a venue somewhere to let people see them. I don't know how that's going to unfold. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, just checking out this Flickr page, there's quite a few on here. There's about 8 pages. It looks like hundreds of different ones, including family members and that sort of stuff. But it's definitely something people can check out and kind of follow along.
Yeah. If they were interested, that's the only public space I have.
La Crosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at La Crosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the La Crosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.